I never wanted to go to that farmhouse. It was supposed to be a weekend getaway, a place to relax, drink, and forget about the suffocating city life for a while. The plan was simple: drive down on Friday, stay until Sunday, and return refreshed. But I should have never gone. I should have never stepped into that house. The farmhouse belonged to my friend Aman. His uncle had left it abandoned for years, and Aman, being the adventurous type, decided to fix it up. He invited me and 2 others, Rishi and Varun, to help out. "We can chill, have a bonfire, drink, and do some light fixing up," Aman had said. "It's going to be fun." I wasn't so sure. Something about the idea of an isolated farmhouse didn't sit well with me. It wasn't fear, exactly, just unease. I ignored it. The drive was long, almost 4 hours outside the city, past empty roads and through thick woods. The farmhouse sat in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by overgrown fields and a broken fence. It was a 2-story structure, its wooden exterior peeling and weathered. The windows were boarded up, and the front porch creaked under our weight as we stepped onto it. "This place looks like a murder house," I joked, trying to hide my discomfort. Aman laughed. "Dude, relax. It's just old. We'll clean it up, and by tomorrow, it'll feel like a proper vacation spot." We spent the first few hours cleaning. Dust coated everything inside. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and the furniture was draped in white sheets. The air smelled of damp wood and something else, something faintly metallic. I ignored it. By nightfall, the farmhouse looked somewhat decent. We set up sleeping bags in the large living room since none of us wanted to sleep alone in the creaky, dark bedrooms. A fire crackled outside as we sat around it, passing a bottle of rum. "This place is eerie," Rishi said, staring into the dark fields beyond. "No neighbors, no signal. What if something happens?" "Like what?" Aman smirked. "A ghost? A serial killer?" "Shut up," I muttered. I was beginning to regret coming. The unease in my stomach hadn't gone away. That's when we heard it, the sound of footsteps crunching on dry leaves. We all turned towards the darkness. The fire barely illuminated a few feet beyond us, and beyond that, nothing but the vast, empty land. "Did you hear that?" Varun whispered. Aman stood up, trying to act brave. "Probably a deer or something." The footsteps stopped. Then came a faint rustling. We stared into the darkness, our drunken haze fading quickly. Then silence. After a few minutes, Aman laughed. "You guys are paranoid. Let's just go inside." I wanted to protest, but I didn't. Inside, we locked the doors and continued drinking, but the night felt different. Unsettling. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to pee. The fire outside had died, and the farmhouse was deathly silent. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The air was cold, the sky moonless. I relieved myself by a tree and was about to head back when I heard it again, footsteps. But this time, they were slow, deliberate. I turned, shining my flashlight towards the sound. Nothing. Just the swaying grass. Then movement. A shadow darted near the fence. My heart pounded. "Who's there?" I called, trying to sound confident. Silence. I stepped back slowly, my breath quickening. The farmhouse door was just a few meters away. I turned and ran inside, locking the door behind me. Aman stirred awake. "What happened?" "I think someone's out there," I whispered. Rishi and Varun woke up too. "Dude, stop messing around," Varun groaned. "I'm serious," I insisted. "I saw something." Aman frowned, grabbing a rusted iron rod from the corner. "Let's check." I didn't want to, but I followed them. We stepped outside cautiously, the flashlight barely cutting through the darkness. The wind rustled through the trees, but there was no movement. No footprints. Nothing. "See? You're just imagining things," Aman said, shaking his head. I wasn't convinced, but I kept quiet. We went back inside, locking every door and window. I didn't sleep. The next morning, we found something that made my blood run cold. Near the fence, where I had seen the shadow, lay a single muddy footprint. A barefoot human print. And next to it, a rusted knife half buried in the soil. "This isn't funny," Rishi said, his voice unsteady. Aman frowned. "It could be an old print." "Then why is the knife there?" I asked. Nobody had an answer. That day, we decided to leave early. But the car wouldn't start. "Battery's dead," Aman muttered, kicking the tire. "No service either," Rishi added, checking his phone. We were stranded. By evening, the fear had settled in. We took turns keeping watch. The farmhouse, once just old and creepy, now felt like a trap. And then, at midnight, we saw him. A man, standing near the treeline, watching us. He was tall, lean, dressed in tattered clothes. His face was obscured by the darkness, but we could see his intent. He wasn't lost. He wasn't harmless. He was waiting. Aman grabbed the iron rod. "Get inside." Now. We locked ourselves in. The man didn't move, just stood there, waiting. The hours stretched. Then, a noise, a soft, deliberate scratching at the back door. He was trying to get in. We held our breaths, gripping whatever we could as weapons. The scratching stopped, replaced by footsteps circling the house. Slow. Patient. Then, glass shattered. A window. He was inside. We ran to the front door, but he was faster. A shadow moved in the hallway. The sound of slow, heavy breathing. We had no choice. We fought. Aman swung the rod, hitting him. The man grunted but didn't go down. He lunged at us, a rusted knife in hand. We tackled him, struggling against his strength. Rishi grabbed a broken chair leg and slammed it against his head. Blood spattered. The man fell dazed. Without thinking, we ran. Out of the house, into the fields. We ran until we reached the road. We didn't stop until we found help. By morning, the police arrived. They searched the farmhouse. They found the man, unconscious, bloodied. He had been living there for months, watching, waiting. He wasn't a drifter. He was a murderer. A wanted fugitive. We left that place, vowing never to return. I never wanted to go to that farmhouse. And I never will again. I had no intention of spending my weekend at that farmhouse. It wasn't my idea, it was Aman's. He had been insistent, talking about how it would be a break from our monotonous city lives. 2 days of chilling, no stress, he had promised. Just us, some drinks, and the open countryside. I wasn't convinced. There was something unsettling about the idea of being isolated in the middle of nowhere. But peer pressure won, and before I knew it, I was in Aman's car with Rishi and Varun, driving 4 hours out of the city into desolation. The farther we got, the less civilization we saw, just empty roads, dense forests, and crumbling houses lost to time. The farmhouse sat on a large, overgrown field with a single dirt road leading up to it. It was old, with chipped paint, a sagging roof, and a porch that creaked under our weight. The windows were either boarded up or covered in grime, and the place had an air of abandonment that made my stomach turn. "This place looks haunted," Rishi muttered as he stepped out of the car. Aman grinned. "That's the charm." We spent the first few hours cleaning. Dust covered every surface, cobwebs hung in thick layers, and the air smelled stale. But beneath the neglect, the house still held something else, something unseen but lingering. I kept catching myself glancing over my shoulder, feeling like I wasn't alone even when my friends were in the next room. By nightfall, the house felt a little more livable. We lit a bonfire outside, sat around it with beers, and tried to ignore the suffocating silence of the fields around us. No distant traffic, no city hum, just the occasional chirping of crickets and the rustling of dry grass in the wind. Then we heard it. Footsteps. Soft but deliberate, crunching through the dried leaves nearby. We fell silent. The fire flickered, casting shadows in every direction, but we saw nothing beyond the glow. "Probably an animal," Aman said, though his voice was tight. Rishi picked up a rock and hurled it into the darkness. It landed with a dull thud. Silence followed. Then, a shuffle, this time closer. A chill ran through me. "Let's go inside," I said, standing up. Nobody argued. We locked the door behind us. The night continued, but the ease was gone. We drank in near silence, ears trained for any sound outside. Sleep was restless. I woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom, hesitated, then grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. The air was cold. The fields stretched endlessly in all directions. As I relieved myself near a tree, a feeling washed over me, like I was being watched. Then I saw him. A figure. Standing near the edge of the property. Motionless. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. My flashlight flickered slightly as I aimed it toward him. He was tall, dressed in tattered clothes, his face hidden in the shadows. I swallowed hard. "Hello?" Nothing. Then, he took a step forward. Panic surged through me. I bolted back to the house, locking the door behind me. My friends stirred awake. "What's wrong?" Aman asked groggily. I could barely get the words out. "There's someone outside." That got their attention. We grabbed makeshift weapons, broken chair legs, a rusty iron rod. Peeking through the window, we saw nothing. "Are you sure?" Varun asked, voice tense. "I swear." The rest of the night passed in uneasy silence. Morning brought no answers, but as we stepped outside, we found something near the porch. Footprints. Barefoot. Leading from the fields to our house, but none leading away. "This isn't funny," Rishi muttered. Aman checked his car. The engine wouldn't start. "Great. Battery's dead. No signal. No way to leave." By evening, we were on edge. Every sound outside made us jump. Then, as the last light faded, we saw him again. Standing farther away this time. Watching. "He's waiting for something," Varun whispered. We locked the doors. Barred the windows. But we weren't safe. A noise came from the back. A light scratching against the wood. Slow testing. Then a window shattered. He was inside. Everything became a blur. Heavy footsteps in the hall. The sound of breathing that wasn't ours. A shadow moving too fast. Aman swung the iron rod wildly as the man lunged. We fought with everything we had. The man was strong, but desperation gave us strength. Rishi tackled him to the ground, and I grabbed a fire poker, swinging it as hard as I could. A sickening crack echoed in the room. He stopped moving. Breathing hard, we stepped back. Blood pooled around him. We had won. Morning came. The car still wouldn't start, but we weren't alone for long. The police found us before we found them. They recognized the man immediately. A fugitive. A murderer who had been hiding out in the abandoned houses of the countryside, waiting for unsuspecting visitors. He had been waiting for us. I never wanted to go to that farmhouse. And I never will again. I had never planned on spending my weekend at an old farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, but Vikram had a way of making plans sound too good to resist. "We need a break from the city, man," he had said. "Just us, nature, and some cold beers. No noise, no stress." At first, I refused. Something about the idea of complete isolation unsettled me. But my friends convinced me, and before I knew it, I was packed into Vikram's old SUV with Rohit and Samir, driving for hours through endless stretches of forest and abandoned fields. The further we got from the city, the more uneasy I became. There was something unnatural about how silent the world felt out here. When we finally arrived, the farmhouse looked worse than I expected. Weather-beaten walls, shattered windows covered with plastic, a roof that sagged under its own weight. We stepped onto the wooden porch, and the boards groaned like they hadn't been walked on in years. This place looks like a horror movie set, Rohit muttered, peering through the dusty windows. Vikram grinned. That's the fun of it. We spent the first few hours clearing dust and cobwebs, making the place somewhat livable. The air inside smelled stale, thick with the scent of decay. But something else lingered, a strange feeling, as if the house itself was watching us. Every so often, I found myself looking over my shoulder, expecting to see someone standing there. But there was never anyone. As night fell, we lit a fire outside, trying to ignore the eerie silence surrounding us. The stars shone unnaturally bright, the sky a vast emptiness stretching over us. Just as we were settling in, we heard it, a faint crunching of leaves, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps. We exchanged uneasy glances. Probably an animal, Samir said, though his voice lacked confidence. But the sound wasn't random. It wasn't the erratic movement of a foraging animal. It was slow, intentional. Vikram stood and hurled a rock into the darkness. It landed with a dull thud, followed by silence. Then another step. Closer. A shiver ran down my spine. Let's go inside, I muttered. We rushed in, bolting the doors. The uneasy feeling followed us, pressing in like an unseen force. We spent the night listening to the wind creaking through the old house, straining our ears for any sign of movement outside. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to a faint tapping sound. I held my breath, listening. It was soft, rhythmic, someone tapping against the window. My stomach twisted. I reached for my phone, using the dim glow of the screen to scan the room. The others were fast asleep. I hesitated before approaching the window. The glass was fogged up, but I could make out a faint silhouette standing just outside. A tall figure, motionless, facing the house. I swallowed my fear and stepped back. My heart pounded as I turned away, forcing myself not to look again. I crawled back into my sleeping bag, pulling it over my head like a child hiding from the monster under the bed. Morning didn't bring relief. The car wouldn't start. The farmhouse had no reception. And when we stepped outside, we found footprints leading up to the house, but none walking away. Samir was the first to break the silence. This isn't normal. Maybe some drifter passing through? Rohit suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. Or someone watching us, Vikram said grimly. That evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, we saw him again. The figure stood further away this time, half hidden by the tree line, motionless. Waiting. We need to leave, I said, panic creeping into my voice. Now. We can't, Vikram muttered. Not without a working car. The house felt smaller that night, suffocating. Every creak of the floorboards made my skin crawl. Then, sometime past midnight, we heard it, scratching. Something, or someone, was testing the walls, the doors. A loud crash shattered the silence. The window behind us exploded, glass spraying across the room. We barely had time to react before the front door burst open, and a figure stepped inside. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a hallucination. It was a man. Tall, gaunt, eyes hollow like a predator's. His hands clenched around something sharp, a rusted blade, glinting in the dim light. Everything happened too fast. Vikram lunged at him with a broken chair leg. Samir grabbed the fire poker. The man swung wildly, slicing through the air, barely missing us. The fight was brutal. He was stronger than he looked, but desperation made us ruthless. Rohit tackled him to the ground, and I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy iron lamp, bringing it down on his head with all my strength. Silence. He lay still, blood pooling beneath him. We stood there, gasping for breath, the reality of what we had done sinking in. Morning came with sirens. The police found us before we found them. They knew who he was immediately, a fugitive, a murderer who had been preying on isolated travelers for years. You're lucky you fought back, one officer told us. Most don't get that chance. We thought it was over. We thought we were safe. But as the police searched the area, they found something far worse. Behind the farmhouse, buried in the dirt, They uncovered dozens of shallow graves, remains of people who had gone missing over the years, their bodies carefully hidden away. Some were old, their bones almost completely decomposed. Others were fresh. Too fresh. And then they found the cabin. A small, hidden structure deep in the woods, just beyond the tree line. Inside, they uncovered what could only be described as a nightmare. A collection of makeshift weapons, trophies from victims, disturbing writings covering the walls. Journals detailing every hunt, every kill, every victim. The man we killed wasn't working alone. Somewhere, out there, someone else was watching. Hey everyone, thank you so much for supporting this channel. It truly means a lot. As a broke college student editing all my videos on an Android phone, it takes a lot of effort to bring these stories to life. A laptop would help me create better content faster, so if you enjoy my work, please subscribe and share. Your support makes all the difference. Thank you so much.